Moscow's neo-Nazi terror. In the chaotic Moscow of the 1990s, the shadow of fascism rose again, turning the city into a battleground of fear and hatred. 5 gripping chapters unravel this chilling mystery. From the fall of the Soviet Union, birthing a void filled by neo-Nazi ideology, to the sinister rise of Igor Pirozhok, a cunning manipulator who formed the Legion Werwolf from disillusioned youth. On May 20, 1994, 2 homemade bombs were discovered in Moscow's Olympic Stadium during a Jewish festival, threatening hundreds of lives. As investigators raced against time, a chilling phone threat targeting a cinema showing Schindler's List revealed a deeper terror plot. The trail led to a Timiryazev Academy hideout, uncovering a neo-Nazi lab, and then to a gruesome murder on a remote farm in Petrishchevo, where a young man's body was found, his ears severed as a warning. Led by the FSB's Anti-Terrorist Center, the hunt exposed Pirozhok's brutal grip over his followers, including Viktor Baranov, a killer shaped by his leader's twisted ideals. Facing justice in the 1995 Yaroslavl trial, will these modern-day Nazis repent, or will their ideology survive to haunt Moscow again? In the shattered Moscow of the 1990s, a new evil rose from the ashes. But what dark ideology took root? The frigid air of Moscow in the early 1990s carries the scent of diesel, desperation, and the faint tang of history as the Soviet Union crumbles. The murmur of Red Square's crowds, a distant echo of faded glory. The air humming with the chaos of a nation unmoored. The scent of opportunity heavy as the Iron Curtain falls. The murmur of a new era dawning in a city of broken dreams. The air tense with the anticipation of what will fill the void. The scent of paper in abandoned party offices, a symbol of collapse. The murmur of a generation lost to uncertainty. The air heavy with the weight of a past that refuses to die. The scent of pine, a haunting reminder of a war fought 50 years ago. The air tense with the realization that history is repeating itself. The murmur of footsteps near the Kremlin, a quiet storm. What dark ideology took root in Moscow's shadows, and who would wield it? The scent of fear and ideology fills the air. Moscow, a fractured stage for a tale of terror. The fall of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union's collapse in 1991 leaves Moscow reeling, the air thick with the scent of uncertainty and decay as the once mighty empire fragments. The murmur of economic hardship echoing through the streets. The scent of breadlines heavy. The air tense with the murmur of a society adrift. The scent of paper and party decrees now meaningless. The air humming with the realization that the old order is gone. The murmur of a new Russia, a fragile hope. The air heavy with the weight of a vacuum. The scent of despair, a breeding ground for darker ideas. The air tense with the anticipation of what will rise from the ruins. The murmur of a generation seeking meaning in the chaos. The scent of pine, a distant echo of a victory forgotten. What would fill the void left by the Soviet dream? The rise of neo-Nazism. Amid the chaos, neo-Nazi ideas take hold. The air sharp with the scent of fear and hatred as young men gather near Red Square. The murmur of their Nazi salutes, a chilling echo. The scent of ideology heavy as they embrace the symbols of a defeated enemy. The air tense with the murmur of swastikas on sleeves. The scent of paper in their manifestos, a promise of power. The air humming with the realization that fascism has returned. The murmur of a new generation drawn to its brutal simplicity. The air heavy with the weight of history's lessons ignored. The scent of pine, a cruel irony as the ideology condemned at Nuremberg in 1945 rises again. The air tense with the anticipation of violence. The murmur of a city unaware of the storm brewing. Who would lead this new wave of terror? A new leader emerges. Igor Pirozhok steps into the void. The air thick with the scent of manipulation and ambition as he arrives in Moscow. The murmur of his Odessa accent, a quiet hum. The scent of opportunity heavy as he preys on the disillusioned. The air tense with the murmur of his alias, Sergei Yakontov, or Ingvard Skarliaite, a mask for his true identity, the scent of paper in his self-written manifestos, a blueprint for terror. The air humming with the realization that he's a predator, the murmur of his charisma, a siren song. The air heavy with the weight of his plans, the scent of pine, a haunting backdrop as he forms the Legion Werwolf. The air tense with the anticipation of a new, fabled leader. The murmur of a city on the brink of terror. What horrors would Pirozhok unleash? In the heart of Moscow, a bomb threatened hundreds. But who planted the seeds of terror? The warm air of May 20th, 1994 fills Moscow's Olympic Stadium. The scent of sweat, excitement, and the faint tang of pine heavy as the festival Jews for Jesus draws crowds, the murmur of laughter echoing through the halls, the air humming with the energy of celebration, the scent of paper and event flyers a promise of unity, the air tense with the anticipation of a day of joy, the murmur of foreign guests mingling with locals a quiet harmony, the scent of pine a distant echo of the forests beyond, the air heavy with the weight of a city healing, the murmur of journalists' chatter a backdrop to the festivities, the air tense with the realization that danger lurks unseen, the scent of fear a whisper beneath the revelry. Who planted the seeds of terror in this moment of peace? The scent of pine and peril fills the air. Moscow, a stage for a tale of dread. The bomb at Olympic Stadium. A security guard's routine patrol takes a dark turn. The air thick with the scent of dust and tension as he enters a dimly lit storage room. The murmur of his footsteps, a quiet hum. The scent of plastic heavy as he spots a suspicious package. The air tense with the murmur of his radio crackling. The scent of paper in his logbook, a grim record. The air humming with the realization that it's a bomb. The murmur of his call for help, a desperate plea. The air heavy with the weight of lives at stake. The scent of pine, a cruel irony as the festival continues unaware. The air tense with the anticipation of disaster. The murmur of hundreds of voices a heartbeat away from panic. The air humming with the urgency of the moment. The scent of fear a rising tide. What would the bomb reveal about Moscow's new threat? A race against time. Specialists swarm the stadium, the air sharp with the scent of urgency and steel as FSB bomb disposal experts arrive. The murmur of their radios, a quiet hum. The scent of paper in their reports, a grim necessity. The air tense with the murmur of their careful steps. The scent of plastic, a faint warning as they examine the device. The air humming with the realization that it's homemade. The murmur of their relief, a quiet exhale as it fails to detonate. The air heavy with the weight of a crisis averted. The scent of pine, a distant echo as they search for more. The air tense with the anticipation of hidden dangers. The murmur of the crowd's ignorance, a fragile shield. The air humming with the urgency of their task. The scent of fear, a lingering shadow. What else did the terrorists hide? A second device uncovered. Just as the tension eases, a cleaner's discovery reignites fear. The air thick with the scent of panic and steel as she finds another device in a restroom. The murmur of her shout a quiet alarm. The scent of plastic heavy as experts rush in. The air tense with the murmur of their analysis. The scent of paper in their notes a grim record. The air humming with the realization that it mirrors the first. The murmur of their determination, a quiet resolve. The air heavy with the weight of a double threat. The scent of pine, a haunting backdrop as the festival ends. The air tense with the realization that Moscow is under siege. The murmur of a city unaware of its peril, a chilling truth. Who was behind this calculated terror? In a Moscow cinema, a phone call sparked panic, but what sinister plot did it reveal? The dim air of Moscow on a spring evening in 1994 fills the cinema by call. The scent of popcorn, anticipation, and the faint tang of pine heavy as Schindler's List prepares to screen. the murmur of the audience's chatter echoing through the hall, the air humming with the weight of history, the scent of paper in tickets, a promise of reflection, the air tense with the anticipation of a powerful film, the murmur of the projector's hum, a quiet prelude, the scent of pine, a distant echo of the forests beyond, the air heavy with the weight of a city grappling with its past, the murmur of anti-fascist sentiment, a quiet undercurrent, the air tense with the realization that danger is near, the scent of fear, a whisper beneath the calm. What sinister plot did a phone call reveal? The scent of pine and peril fills the air, Moscow a stage for a tale of terror. The threat to Baikal cinema. A phone rings in a Moscow police station, the air sharp with the scent of urgency and steel as an officer answers. The murmur of the caller's voice, a quiet hum. The scent of paper, heavy as he logs the threat. The air tense with the murmur of the name, Ingvar Skaurlyite. The scent of fear, a rising tide as the caller warns of an explosion at Baikal Cinema. The air humming with the realization that Schindler's List is the target. The murmur of the officer's alarm, a desperate call. The air heavy with the weight of a city under threat. The scent of pine, a cruel irony as the anti-fascist film plays. The air tense with the anticipation of disaster. The murmur of the audience's ignorance, a fragile shield. What did the caller's voice betray? The voice of terror. Experts analyze the call, the air thick with the scent of paper and tension as they play the recording. The murmur of the caller's South Russian accent, a quiet hum. The scent of steel heavy as they trace the call to the Timiryazev Academy. The air tense with the murmur of their findings. The scent of paper in their reports, a grim record. The air humming with the realization that Skaurlyite is a false name. The murmur of their suspicion, a quiet storm. The air heavy with the weight of a terrorist at large. The scent of pine, a haunting backdrop as they connect the call to the Olympic Stadium bombs. The air tense with the anticipation of a larger plot. The murmur of a city on edge, a chilling truth. Where would the trail lead? The Timiryazev connection. Operatives descend on Timiryazev Academy, the air sharp with the scent of urgency and steel as they search the sprawling campus. The murmur of their footsteps, a quiet hum. The scent of paper in their warrants, a grim necessity. The air tense with the murmur of reports of suspicious fires. The scent of pine heavy as they approach a small house on the outskirts. The air humming with the realization that it's a lab. The murmur of their discovery, a quiet alarm. The air heavy with the weight of bomb-making materials. The scent of fear, a rising tide as they find components matching the Olympic devices. The air tense with the anticipation of a breakthrough. The murmur of a neo-Nazi plot, a chilling revelation. Who were the masterminds behind this terror? In a quiet village, a farm hid a dark secret. But what horror lay beneath the surface? The chilly air of Petrishchevo in late May 1994 carries the scent of hay, earth, and the faint tang of pine as operatives close in on a remote farm. The murmur of cows lowing in the distance, the air humming with the tension of a stakeout, the scent of paper in their reports a grim necessity, the air tense with the anticipation of a breakthrough, the murmur of villagers' whispers, a quiet hum, the scent of pine, a haunting echo of the forest beyond, the air heavy with the weight of a hidden evil, the murmur of camouflage-clad figures, a chilling rumor, the air tense with the realization that danger lurks, the scent of fear a whisper beneath the calm, the air humming with the urgency of their mission, the murmur of a neo-Nazi cell, a quiet storm. What horror lay beneath the farm's surface? The scent of pine and dread fills the air, Petrishchevo a stage for a tale of terror. The stakeout at Timiryazev. Operatives monitor the Timiryazev lab, the air thick with the scent of urgency and steel as they watch two young men emerge, the murmur of their footsteps a quiet hum, the scent of plastic heavy as they carry a suspicious bag, the air tense with the murmur of their coded radios, the scent of paper in their notes a grim record, the air humming with the realization that they're on the move, the murmur of their pursuit, a quiet chase, the air heavy with the weight of potential disaster, the scent of pine, a distant echo as they follow the men to Yaroslavl station, the air tense with the anticipation of a new attack, the murmur of the crowd, a fragile shield, the air humming with the urgency of their task, the scent of fear, a rising tide. Where would the suspects lead them? The journey to Petrishchevo. The men board a train, the air sharp with the scent of diesel and steel as operatives follow. The murmur of the train's wheels, a quiet hum, the scent of paper in their reports, a grim necessity. The air tense with the murmur of hidden cameras rolling. The scent of pine heavy as they arrive in Petrishchevo. The air humming with the realization that this is their base. The murmur of villagers' tales, a chilling confirmation. The air heavy with the weight of rumors. Camouflage, German songs, violence. The scent of fear, a rising tide as they approach the farm. The air tense with the anticipation of a dark secret. The murmur of a neo-Nazi cell, a quiet storm. The air humming with the urgency of their discovery. The scent of pine, a haunting backdrop. What would they find on the farm? A gruesome discovery. A hidden search reveals horror. The air thick with the scent of decay and steel as operatives uncover a body in a manure pile. The murmur of their gasps, a quiet hum. The scent of paper in their reports, a grim record. The air tense with the murmur of the victim's missing ears. The scent of pine, a cruel irony as they identify him as a Legion member. The air humming with the realization that this was an execution. The murmur of their findings, a chilling truth. The air heavy with the weight of a neo-Nazi killing. The scent of fear, a crushing force as they realize the depth of the terror. The air tense with the anticipation of justice. The murmur of a city under siege, a haunting echo. Who would pay for this brutality?
In a Moscow courtroom, neo-Nazis face justice, but would their ideology die with them? The cold air of Yaroslavl in winter 1995 fills the courtroom, the scent of paper, tension, and the faint tang of pine heavy as Igor Pirozhok and Viktor Baranov face trial, the murmur of the judge's voice, a quiet hum, the air humming with the weight of justice, the scent of paper in the verdict, a promise of closure, the air tense with the anticipation of a reckoning, the murmur of the gallery's whispers, a quiet storm, the scent of pine, a haunting echo of the forest where their crimes began, the air heavy with the weight of a city's fear, the murmur of the Legion werewolf's collapse, a chilling truth, the air tense with the realization that ideology survives, the scent of fear, a lingering shadow, the air humming with the urgency of the moment, the murmur of a nation watching, a quiet plea. Would their ideology die with them or live on to haunt Moscow? The scent of pine and justice fills the air, Yaroslavl a stage for a tale of reckoning. The arrest of the Legion. The FSB strikes in Petrishchevo, the air sharp with the scent of urgency and steel as operatives storm the farm, the murmur of their shouts, a quiet hum, the scent of paper in their warrants, a grim necessity, the air tense with the murmur of Pirozhok's arrest, the scent of pine, heavy as they seize Baranov and Dmitry Volodin, the air humming with the realization that the Legion is broken, the murmur of their confessions, a chilling truth, the air heavy with the weight of evidence, ears in a jar, weapons, manifestos, the scent of fear, a crushing force as they admit to Starakov's murder, the air tense with the anticipation of justice, the murmur of a city relieved, a fragile hope. What would their confessions reveal? The trial in Yaroslavl. The courtroom buzzes, the air thick with the scent of paper and tension as the trial unfolds. The murmur of the prosecutor's voice, a quiet hum. The scent of paper in the evidence, a grim record. The air tense with the murmur of Pirozhok's smirk. The scent of pine, a haunting backdrop as Baranov boasts. The air humming with the realization that they feel no remorse. The murmur of their ideology, a chilling echo. The air heavy with the weight of their crimes, terrorism, murder, hate. The scent of fear, a lingering shadow as the judge sentences them. The air tense with the anticipation of closure, the murmur of a city's relief, a quiet exhale. The air humming with the urgency of the verdict, the scent of pine, a reminder of the forest's scars. Would their punishment end the terror? A legacy of hate. The air grows cold with the scent of paper and dread as Pirozhok vows to return. The murmur of his defiance a quiet hum, the scent of pine heavy as Baranov echoes his resolve. The air tense with the murmur of their unrepentant ideology. The scent of paper in their manifestos a haunting legacy. The air humming with the realization that neo-Nazism persists. The murmur of Moscow streets a quiet warning. The air heavy with the weight of a city still at risk. The scent of fear, a crushing force as the 1990s fade. The air tense with the anticipation of a new generation. The murmur of history's lessons, unlearned a chilling truth. The air humming with the urgency of vigilance. The scent of pine, a haunting reminder of a war never truly won. Will Moscow ever be free of this shadow?
Don't scroll past. Hit like and subscribe if you're ready for the next twisted story.